other Christians. And I also think it was a prelude to what he would do with homoplessy. I think he was exchanging, in this case, a pew for a railroad car. So, just one day.
That's a great point. I'm going to ask Judge Hunter a question, but as I do this, I'd like you to be thinking if you have some questions that you would like to ask the panelists, and we'll move into that after this question. Since I know that we do have a number of lawyers and judges and law students here, Judge Hunter, I'm wondering given that you've given so much thought to this time period, to the state constitution, to the role of Albion Tourget, what do you think we should be covering about this in our law schools?
Well, I've taught at Wake Forest with Mike Curtis, who will be presenting later, election law. I've also taught the course at Elon, and I'm currently teaching at North Carolina Central. And I've asked all my classes how many of the students there, and they're usually advanced students, have ever seen a copy of the North Carolina Constitution. And none of them have. And so, you know, given that level of ignorance, it's pretty important that since they're going to be taking an oath to uphold it, that they ought to have at least read it. I think that you know, if you look, and you're going to be hearing more about this later, about the educational litigation that we currently have in the state, and Tourget's view of not a cost-free, but as low a cost as practicable university education in an era where we've had tuition increases at the University of North Carolina for the past, 15 years each year. You see that the commitment that he has that are constitutionalized. Now, when a right is constitutionalized, it generally means that there's an affirmative obligation on the behalf of the state to provide what is stated in the Constitution. So there's a lot of opportunity for creative lawyering, I think, about this. Certainly the fruits of the labor clause that he put in has been the subject of a lot of very creative lawyering in terms of this sort of thing. Ad valorem property taxation is something that we take for granted, but was not taken for granted in the 19th century. The right to vote and the qualifications and disqualifications for office have been the subject of a lot of litigation. So I think it's important, if it's our organic document, that law students and lawyers have an ability to understand it. I know that, for example, in Quorum versus University of North Carolina, very important rights are being created in the Constitution that, unless the legislature provides a remedy for, we have a constitutional remedy for them in our state courts, and they are the primary rights that we enjoy as citizens, and whereas the federal rights are secondary. Even though we spend 2 or 3 semesters in law school studying the federal Constitution, we don't devote enough time. I know that Justice Newby teaches at Campbell a course in Constitution.